inspiring conversations. My name is Danielle Benzon, and I'm here today with my very special guest, Evelyn McKelvie. Evelyn is an executive coach and author. She helps leaders and teams break through obstacles by developing people's self-awareness, engagement, and resilience, and working with neuroscience, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and sometimes even horses. Evelyn is the author of The Executive Horse, 21st Century Leadership Lessons from Horses. Thank you so much for being here today, Evelyn. I'm so stoked you're here.
Thank you for having me, Danielle. It's an honor.
It's an honor for me. You're my very first guest. I'm very excited. And I'm especially excited because I've worked with Evelyn as a coach without horses and as a coach with horses. And she is one of the most wise and grounded and elegant people that I know. And I think, especially right now with everything that's going on and a lot of us are very stressed, I thought it might be nice to just infuse some of her energy into the world. So yeah, I'm so very glad that you're here.
Thank you.
So what do you think about what's going on with the world right now with all this self-isolation and not like social distancing, but physical distancing and, you know, all the stuff that's coming up? I feel like everyone feels suddenly like they've got anxiety and depression and everything else.
Yeah, I feel very blessed because as an introvert who does spend a lot of time on my own, I feel comfortable doing this, but I know it's not as comfortable for most people, I think. My introvert friends are pretty good with it, but for those people who really get their energy from being with other people, this can be a really difficult period. There's no question. And the uncertainty, too, of how long will it last and what's it going to be like, you know, in the future, and will it ever get back to normal? I think there's a lot of uncertainty that feeds into a lot of anxiety for people these days.
And do you work a lot with people who have like anxiety or at least maybe not anxiety, but highly strung? I know sometimes horses can be highly strung as well as people. Do you have any tricks that you might recommend for this time while we're all cooped up inside?
Well, animals are wonderful at helping us to get grounded. And so even if you have a dog or a cat or a bird, or to go out to, if you can go outside and spend some time, you know, really connecting to the natural world, that really helps. It's been my experience that we get so into our heads, you know, we're so drawn into that prefrontal cortex, we're not paying attention to what's going on in our body. And if you can't really get into your body and pay attention to what's going on in your body, then your brain can just take you on this train of anxious progression, you know, fantasizing about all the bad things that can happen, all the threats, all the scary things. Our brains are really wired to look for problems. And so if we let them go, they'll find the problems. No problem.
No problem to find problems.
Yeah.
So how do we rein them in?
Well, that's one of the things that I love about coaching with horses. Being around horses, and as I said, being in nature, you can do that. You don't have to be around horses. I find horses very powerful because of their large presence. They have a large electromagnetic field, and it has a real measurable impact on us in terms of slowing our heart rates down and stirring that oxytocin, the love hormone that we share in love relationships or friendships. So, but you can get that same kind of thing from pets, from dogs, from cats that you love. You can get it from spending time in nature. And the most important thing to do is to pay attention to your breath. You can't really, you can't get into running away with your thinking. If you're paying attention to your breath, there's an expression to be where your hands are or be where your feet are.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's a simple concept, but it's a powerful one. So to go for a walk outside on a lovely day and be where your feet are, one step at a time, and pay attention to your breathing, then that helps to really ground you literally and helps you to get out of your head and back into your body. And that's where you can connect to feeling good. You can connect to what makes you feel inspired, what makes you feel at home, what makes you feel passionate. We don't get to feel passionate if we're spending all of our time thinking about stuff that's.
Do you think that's a big part of it? Because I know a lot of people are feeling kind of lost and directionless. Especially those people who can't work. I mean, I'm still working during self-isolation, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
Do you think that finding a purpose really helps with that?
Yes, and I think even if you haven't found your purpose in life,
No, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's the big one. But if you can find a purpose or something that you can really dedicate yourself to in this period of time, and imagine, spend a bit of time imagining, what can I come out of this with? What would I like to have? What would I like to be? What would I like to have grown into when I come out of this kind of cocoon space? And then, take some time every day to meditate on that. And I don't mean, lotus position on a cushion, but to get into your body, get into your breath, connect to what's really going on inside, and because that is where you connect to your passion, your purpose, and what really makes you excited about life.
I love that idea that this is more like cocoon space, because there's a lot of pressure on social media, like, oh, you got to get to that project or clean your closet or whatever, and it's like, but the idea of the cocoon, because butterflies get really messy before they become butterflies. Caterpillars get really messy before they become butterflies, and that idea that we're kind of just going inward and shifting and paying attention to who we want to. I like what you said, instead of something like you want to do, who you want to be, like what do you want to come out of this being. I think that, because I do feel like a lot of us are feeling a deeper shift right now within our lives and within ourselves and within the way we live in the world. So I think that's great, that cocoon image.
Yeah. If you can think from, say, 3 or 4 years out in, say, 2025, if you were to look back on 2020 and think about that unique experience that I had in my life, where I could dedicate myself in some respects to focusing on something for myself, for others, for change, for, it's not necessarily about accomplishment. It's really about connecting more deeply to.
And we have this unique experience. We're not being so distracted right now, and we have the time to look within. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are getting distracted by binge watching Netflix and that sort of thing. But that's okay too. I think that the advice that I'm seeing more and more online is to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, good.
It's a stressful time for everyone.
Yeah.
And even if things seem like they're going okay, it's that uncertainty that's always underlying what's going on. And and another thing, I had a little meltdown last week one day because I was just like, gosh darn it, I want to just go to a Chinese restaurant and get takeout and take it home, or I want to go and do something that I'm used to doing, I haven't been able to do for a month. It was that loss of choice, that sense of I can't do things. Not that I, would have, it wasn't a big deal. What it was about was the loss of choice.
Yeah.
It's about that feeling constrained and restricted.
Yeah.
And so I had my little meltdown over that for about a couple hours. And but one of the things that I finally learned to do as an older person, I wish I'd learned to do this much younger, was to be kinder to myself. So, and I really am a lot kinder to myself. So years ago, I might have really taken a couple of days to, berate myself mentally over that failure to be, calm, cool, and collected every day, all day. And that's just not the way life is. So we have to be gentle and kind with ourselves through this. Basically, we should always be gentle and kind with ourselves.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
For those
And I was going to say the
self-flagellating culture.
Yes, and I was going to say, because we're used to having distractions. So not having as many distractions, you might notice that you're having more thoughts about judging yourself, or fearful thoughts, or questions, and that those kinds of things that bring anxiety up. That could very well be what's going on right now. And it's okay to have those thoughts, but if you get back into your body, out of your forehead, back into your body, you can let go of that anxiety and just learn how to take those deep breaths and be good
Yeah.
to yourself.
So breathing, being where our hands are.
Yeah.
I've also heard for those of us who are starving for touch,
Yes.
just self-soothing touch, just kind of
Yeah.
rubbing or hugging a tree or hugging
Yeah.
your pet, or a stuffed toy or whatever. I'm hearing a lot of that kind of advice as well, I think. But again, it's all physical, right? Like that's the thing. And I think when I worked with you, we did some work with the horses. That was what was so interesting, is it's so physical. You can't think it. You can't outwit it. You can't bullshit it. It's a very, very physical language with the horses, and to be with them. Can you like explain that experience of what it's like when you're kind of just distracted, and then you come in the presence of these horses, and what it does to your body and in the you know what I mean.
Yeah. Literally, more and more research is showing us that we all have an electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
And the horse's electromagnetic field is around their hearts is something like 50 times larger than ours. So their magnetic field, their energetic field, has an impact on us. We tend to entrain our breathing and our heart rate to theirs because it's quite similar. We are mammals. We share a lot of the same kinds of responses in terms of social needs and emotional needs and all of those kinds of things. So when we're around them, I mean, a lot of people find them fearful because they're so big.
Right. Yeah.
But I've worked with a lot of people to get over that fear quite quickly, and that's just a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I do with clients is help them to understand the differences between us and them. But what also happens, and what happened for me 20 some years ago that made me so excited about doing this kind of work, was I felt as though I'd just been pushed back into my body. What happens, because they're nonverbal,
Uh-huh.
you can't talk them in or out of anything. They're not impressed by they're not impressed by your clothes, by your your car, by your hairdo or anything. They are totally interacting with you from an energetic and a physical perspective point of view. And so that kind of forces us to do the same. It takes some people longer to get out of their head and into their body and to engage like that. But that is where the power lies in terms of working with horses in a coaching or a therapeutic setting, because they take us into an area that we're not used to being in terms of fully embodied and fully engaged and in touch with our internal experience.
Yeah. And then we want that all the time, but obviously we're not always able to work with horses. I mean, not only because of COVID, but also, in winter when it's snowing or whatever. So you work with people without horses too. How do you bring those experiences into just person-to-person coaching?
Well, again, looking for how people can find ways in their lives to get that internal experience. And again, not everybody wants to do meditation. Not everybody goes to the gym, but you need to have something physical, and it can be simply like a slow walking meditation. And by meditation, I mean mindfulness.
Right.
I'm really talking about mindfulness more so than meditation. The difference between mindfulness and meditation has to do with how change appears. So when you're meditating, you're focusing and you're trying to block out the world.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're being mindful, you're expanding your awareness, which is what horses do. Their survival strategy is to have this wide field of awareness. And so they're able to perceive the change that's going on around them and filter what's okay and what's not okay. So when you can get into that kind of a space and be in a mindful space where your awareness is awakened, then you're not all energy focused in here. You're kind of diffused throughout your whole body. And that is a very rejuvenating, resilient place to come from.
And that actually ties into what you were saying earlier about self-compassion, because it sounds like it's a very accepting place to be. You're not, because when I think some forms of meditation is very much about blocking out. So it's kind of about denial. But this is more about this kind of soft awareness is more embracing everything. So that's not only good for self-compassion and self-love and being present, but it's also something that we want on stage, because there's a lot of speakers in our audience. Do you have any like insights from the work that you've done for speakers specifically?
I do. I think it's an interesting comparison, because when we present ourselves to horses, we are really interacting them and speaking to them in body language terms. So when you're getting on stage, you need to be able to speak as much with your body as you are with your mind and your voice. And so that has a lot of presence awareness, expansion of awareness, instead of, focusing down. When we focus, we tend to block out a lot of information that we can use to regenerate and engage with life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think it's also this just tying into like so many things right now. You're just making my mind go on fire, because also it's like that whole stage fright thing is when we narrow our focus and we get too intense. Whereas when we're more relaxed and more open, which is, easier said than done, but when we're more open and accepting, maybe better than relaxed, when we're more accepting, then when a question happens that we weren't expecting, or we go off on a tangent, it's a lot easier to come back. It's a lot easier to be a flexible speaker as well. Which is, not only important for presence, but also important just, so that you can speak and not die.
Yes. Yeah. It's the requirement to be authentic as well as present. That is an overlap with how you are with horses and how you are on stage. Yeah. To be here in the moment. And that's a challenge in terms of speaking, because we want to, engage our brains and race ahead and think about what we're about to say. So there's a real different discipline, I think, to speaking that is benefited by incorporating that living in the moment, open awareness and mindfulness, authentic presence.
Yeah, and it's a practice too. And I think so this is a perfect time, now that we have, some of us have less distractions. It's a fantastic time to build that practice and to practice that practice, and to practice being, because it does take time, and it takes it's difficult with lots of distractions. And I know Netflix is distracting, but you can switch it off. But we don't all have so many demands being made of us at the moment. And so this time could actually be a real gift, not like a you must do things gift, but just a kind of, who am I and what am I doing? Figuring out time kind of gift, and a time to slow down. At Cocoon and slow down and notice where we are. I love that. Do you have any like little exercises that you can share with us?
Well, aside from the usual ones of, going for a walk outside, be with your hands, be with your feet, and be with your breath, and be gentle with yourself. But I also have an exercise that I use to get people into a state of mindfulness. It takes a few minutes, so it's not something I can tell you how to do. But I have a little recording on my website, which I'll send you a link to it.
Fantastic. We'll include the link in the description below. So go check out Evelyn's website so you can do that little mindfulness exercise and bring a little bit of peace into this otherwise turbulent time. And absolutely, when you do get a chance, working with Evelyn kind of online as a coach, just kind of over Zoom, is amazing. I've worked with her a lot, and she's helped me through a lot of things. But also, if you have the chance to work with her and a horse or multiple horses, there is something so immediate about that experience that I think everyone should try and should experience, because it's so powerful and undeniable, I think. Is there anything you want to tell us about that before we finish up?
No, I think it is very powerful, and it's not something that people immediately understand why, but it's from a neuroscience perspective, it is very impactful on the brain. And so what happens there in the out of doors with the horses, the smells, the color, that energetic interaction, that really embeds itself in your brain, and you walk away with some lifelong memories. It's the perfect way to set you up for having insight. And insight that we can become aware of and reflect on is what enables us to make change in our lives. Positive change.
And the perfect time for reflection right now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being my first guest. It was so exciting to have you here. And stay tuned. We're going to be doing one of these interviews every month. So thank you so much, Evelyn, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.